As corporate filmmakers, we're rarely handed the perfect location. More often, we walk into an office that actually looks like this. Plain white walls, fluorescent ceiling lights, generic office furniture. Nothing about it feels cinematic, but our clients still are expecting us to make this space look as good as possible. So how do you walk into a room like this and leave with an interview that feels polished, intentional, and professional? Well, today I'll show you exactly how I approach this specific location, and more importantly, the thought process behind every decision. Let's dive right in. When I travel to a new location for a corporate film shoot, I typically don't have any information. It's a complete mystery as far as the location. Sometimes, on occasion, I get a few pictures of some of the rooms. In this case, I got nothing. I just walked through the door, completely blind as far as what I was going to get into. But I knew I was in trouble the moment I walked in and the client told me, hey, I have an empty office that would be perfect for you to set up for the interviews. And that's what I walked into. Now, some people may see this as a blank canvas and like, yep, great, I can dress it. But this is tough. And today it's one of those videos where it's not about, hey, look how great this interview turned out because of this amazing location. This is about the reality of shooting in this environment and finding a way to still produce high quality content. And I'm not going to sit here and tell you that this interview turned out amazing, that it's going to go on my reel. But at the end of the day, we have to create something that our clients are happy with, that they're proud of, that looks very professional and intentional. And so how do you do that in this particular environment? So when I first walk in, there's a lot of things that goes into my mind as far as like, man, how am I going to get out of this situation? How do I turn this into something that works? And we know that shooting towards a corner is ideal because that's one easy way to create depth. Like if I shoot towards a flat wall, then everything is going to be flat. But if I shoot towards a corner, then I have a little bit of depth that I can play with. And so I already know I'm going to shoot into a corner somehow. It's just figuring out which corner. And really, I'm very limited because I can either shoot towards this corner or I can shoot towards that corner. And that's basically it because I'm not going to move this desk. I don't want to show the desk. And then the door is on the other corner of this particular wall. So those are really my only two options. For me, at least, it makes no sense to start building lighting equipment if I don't know the strategy of how I want to light my subject. And I don't know that until I figure out this shot. And so that's the main thing. So I'm going to spend a lot of time in a room like this with my camera and the monitor to figure out where my shot is. The other thing that I look at when we have windows like this is I need to understand where the sun is and where the sun is going to go. Because it will really impact my ability to control lighting in this room if the sun is shining right through a window. So in this particular case, the sun was actually somewhere here and was shining this way, but it was going that way. So as the day was going to go by, then the sun would kind of be hidden by the building itself. So I didn't have to worry about the sun going this way and then shining through all those windows, which that's a big advantage. My first instinct is this, it's that corner. And I felt that I could actually use the window. I can actually, by showing the window, I can create something that's a little bit more interesting than just this white wall, because I don't want to show the white wall. There's nothing there. But I think I can use those windows and create something that's okay. Now, again, luckily, the weather outside, I don't know if you can see it, but it's completely cloudy. And there's not a lot of variation in the intensity of the light outside. So the sun is going to stay, the intensity of the sun is going to stay the way it is, roughly, right? It's still going to change a little bit, but nothing drastic that I need to worry about. So that was the plus. The other thing that those windows do, which again ties my options a little bit, especially because I'm showing the window, it kind of forces me, and I know some people have sent me comments that they're not a big fan of motivated lighting, meaning you can see the window, therefore we understand that the light is coming this way. The light should come from that side because the window is on this side. To me, motivated lighting is a great way to make things look natural. I'm not saying that you should always use motivated lighting. But in this case, if I'm showing the window, it would be very difficult technically with the equipment that I have to create the fill side on the window side. I would have to put a lot of neg next to the person to eliminate the levels coming from the window, and then add an artificial light on this side to create the key side. To me, it makes no sense. I am fighting the natural light for no reason. And so for me, when I'm thinking about this angle and showing those window, it kind of ties me to the notion of this person is going to sit somewhere here and is going to look this way with the camera pointing this way, because now they're looking in this corner, the windows are here, light is coming here, and I've got my contrast, my fill side on this side that's facing the camera. And so all of that is kind of tied into the decision of putting the camera where I put it. And then the room is telling me this is how the person needs to sit. Because everything is so white, because everything is so flat as far as flooded with the light, I had to make decisions on how do I create something. And so the first thing was, can I play with warmer colors? Can I change the lighting color temperature to create something a little warmer? Because that may give me a little look that's not as flat as pure white walls everywhere. And so I knew I was going to play with that. And then in order to kind of gain some control, and I always shoot with some level of ND on my camera. If you've heard any of my videos in the past, you know that I always add some ND filters. But so I start cranking my ND filter in camera to lower all the levels in the room. Because the less level I have, then the more control I get by adding my own light source. It also helps me amplify the practical, because now that little aperture light bulb, which is not very bright even at 100% intensity, now looks brighter because everything else in the room becomes lower, right? The whole room becomes darker, so that little light bulb becomes a lot brighter and it has more of an effect. We close the blinds a little bit. You can see here, it gives us a little bit of a texture versus pure white. And so that's nice, I think, or it helped. And then it helped control the levels a little bit on top of ND filters. This is the Amaran 360C. I'm pointing it straight at the ceiling and I'm letting the ceiling bounce the light back into the room. It gives you now the control to be able to adjust the levels the way you want. If I didn't have the ND, I'm just prisoner of the natural light coming in, and that's just what the levels are. But by lowering everything, adding this light, I can now adjust the ambient levels up and down by changing the intensity of that light. The key light on him is straight from the window. I don't have any other artificial light. I ended up putting, I have a 7x3 diffuser that I stood right next to him to kind of diffuse some of that key light coming through the window, just to make it nice and even. I had enough levels coming through the window and through the diffuser to give me good key light on him. So now we have this softbox. This is the 200X that's going to be used as a fill. And, that one is super straightforward. It's a matter of turning it on and adjusting the levels until we have the contrast that we want, to make sure we don't have too much shadows, but still some contrast on the person's face. And then I use my tube as the backlight, and we just want something. And I think later on we actually put the grid on there. We didn't leave it open like this. We just have a little grid just so that it shines kind of directly on top of their heads and their shoulders to kind of try to create some separation between the wall and the person. But you can see the levels on his hair right here, and you can see how warm that light is. So I play with the color temperature as well on the tube. I always like a warmer backlight anyway, especially with white hair. Like if it was set to 56K or 5600 Kelvin, then his hair would look, very, very white. But by doing it a little warmer, I get some separation, and I like the color, and then you can see it here on his shoulder as well. And so it goes all the way down here. And so it helps by adding that, by just creating something that looks a little bit more polished. The lighting is consistent between, everything is coming from the right and then gradient into the left. And so it just looks pretty natural. Now, if I remember correctly, I don't have them in the behind the scene picture, but we also added a small light on the floor here that's just shining a little bit of level on that cabinet. I think we used a Halo 100X just on a very small stand. And then we dressed the room a little bit by adding this frame and this plant. This plant, if you remember, was already in the room. It was just on the other corner. It was right here. And so we just moved it here. And then there's no frame in here, but there was a bunch of nails on the wall to hang pictures. And we simply just pulled one out and then placed it in the wall. This is one of those cases where you don't ask any question and you ask for forgiveness later. If they say, hey, did you put a hole in this wall? Yeah, I just pulled one of those nails here, and then we were able to find a frame in the hallways, and we were able to then place it where we wanted. There's a little bit of a reflection here, but we did put some gaff tape. So if you have reflection on a frame like that, all you need to do, so if this is the wall and the picture on it, you just kind of tilt it this way. So we just put some gaff tape on the bottom back of the frame, and it just tilts it up a little bit. And that way you can kind of control where the glare is. We didn't transform an ugly room into a pretty room. What we created was a good composition, something that makes sense, something that looks professional, something that looks intentional. You don't really need a perfect location to create a professional image. You need a process. Start with the camera, find the frame, let the room guide your decision, and only then start building the light. If you found this video useful, don't forget to like and subscribe to the channel for more cinematography tips and breakdowns. And if you want to learn more about camera settings and how to control your camera to achieve the shots that you want, check out my online course, Essential Camera Settings. Thanks for watching, and happy filming.